guys, it's Dasha and welcome back. If this is your first time on this channel, here you'll be able to learn English and get tips on learning languages. Today is an English lesson and we're doing a vocabulary test. The kind of vocabulary we're gonna be testing is intermediate level. If you also want to have a go at advanced vocabulary, then check out this video over here after you're done with this one. The rules of the test are simple. I'm going to give you 10 questions and you'll be asked to fill in the correct missing word from 4 options. You'll have 15 seconds to answer each question, but you can of course pause the video if you need more time. Now, after each question, I'll give you the right answer with explanations. And after you're done, let me know in your comments how many questions you got right. So let's jump right in. Question number 1. The purpose of the French Revolution was to something feudalism in order to establish capitalism. Is it A, withdraw, B, set aside, C, abolish, or D, revoke? The correct answer is C, to abolish. The purpose of the French Revolution was to abolish feudalism in order to establish capitalism. Abolish means to formally put an end to a system, practice, or institution. Feudalism is a social system in medieval Europe, making abolish the appropriate verb. To withdraw could mean to remove support or to remove from a position, so it doesn't really fit well in the sentence. Now, set aside could either mean to declare a legal decision or process to be invalid, or to keep something like money or time for a particular purpose, like to set aside money to buy a new car or a new phone. Obviously, that wouldn't make sense here. Plus, feudalism isn't a specific law or legal process, and revoke basically means to cancel, making abolish the best answer. Number 2. When watching The Crown, you need to be able to something between the fact and fiction. Your options are A, separate, B, differentiate, C, comprehend, and D, ascertain. The correct answer to question number 2 is differentiate. When watching The Crown, you need to be able to differentiate between the fact and fiction. Differentiate means to show or find the difference between things that are compared. And the key word here is between, because you'll normally use the word differentiate when referring to 2 things. The appropriate prepositions to use with differentiate are from and between. With that being said, the words separate, comprehend, and ascertain don't fit into this sentence. Moving on to question number 3. My cousin Patrick and his wife Stacy are something, a baby. They're absolutely thrilled. You can choose from A, accepting, B, accepting, C, looking forward to, or D, expecting. You'll get a point if you answered D, expecting. My cousin Patrick and his wife Stacy are expecting a baby. They are absolutely thrilled. To expect a child or a baby is a very common English expression. So if you didn't know, now you know. To accept doesn't work here because it means to agree to something or to do something. And accepting is actually a preposition that means except for or apart. And while Patrick and Stacy are certainly looking forward to having a baby, the sentence is missing the verb have, leaving expecting as the correct option. Number 4, it looks like you need to either increase your income or reduce your assets if something, so much money to the bank. Your options are A, own, B, owe, C. indebted, or D. earn? The answer is, it looks like you need to either increase your income or reduce your assets if you owe so much money to the bank. I've seen a lot of people confuse the words own and owe because they're pronounced so similarly. But the verb own means to possess, like I own a car or I own a computer. But owe means to have an obligation to repay someone either money or a favor. Debted, however, is an adjective that also means to owe money, which of course doesn't fit into the sentence because we need a verb. And to earn means to get paid in exchange for doing something like work. Next up, question 5. Mark was one of the first scholars who endeavored to something, the causes of events, instead of merely accepting the bare statement of facts. Is it A. signal, B. trace, C. originate, or D. get back? The answer is B. trace. Mark was one of the first scholars who endeavored to trace the causes of events instead of merely accepting the bare statement of facts. It means that Mark was able to discover through investigation the causes of the events. To signal means to convey information, but here we want a verb that's synonymous with discover. You might think that's originate, but not quite. Originate means to come from somewhere, like this wine originates from France. Get back is obviously not the right answer as well because it means to return, which is irrelevant to the context of this phrase. And now, question number 6. Gloria was exhausted. She could no longer something with her husband's behavior and decided to leave him. Here your options are A. put up with, B. stand, C. tolerate, or D. abide. The answer is no other than A. put up with. Gloria was exhausted. She could no longer put up with her husband's behavior and decided to leave him. To put up with someone is a great phrasal verb you can use in everyday English, and it means to tolerate someone or something. Now, you might be asking, if put up with means to tolerate, then why isn't tolerate the correct answer? That's easy. Put up with follows the preposition with, and we don't use any prepositions with tolerate. Abide means many things, like to dislike someone or to live somewhere, all of which are clearly not a right fit. Nearing closer to the end with number 7. The chief characteristic of the Amazonian forest, aside from its magnitude, is the great something of genera and species. You have 4 options. A. uniformity, B. dissimilarity, C. stability, and D. diversity. And the answer is D. diversity. The chief characteristic of the Amazonian forest, aside from its magnitude, is the great diversity of genera and species. Now granted, this sentence might require you to know a little bit about the Amazonian forest, but it's generally known for its biodiversity. Since both uniformity and dissimilarity are antonyms of the word diversity, they're not the right choice of words, and neither is stability. And moving on to number 8. It seems this is it, and we need to face the consequences. There's no point in trying to prolong the something. Is the answer A. necessary, B. inevitable, C. result, or D. destiny? answer here is B, inevitable. It seems this is it, and we need to face the consequences. There's no point in trying to prolong the inevitable. If you speak a Romance language like French, then this might have been an easy one for you. But for the rest of us who aren't, my native language being Russian, this might have been a tricky one. In this sentence, we're trying to say that certain consequences are to follow, and these consequences are inevitable, meaning they're going to happen anyway. They're not necessary because they don't have to happen, but they will happen naturally. Result and destiny would also sound awkward in the sentence and wouldn't make sense. So inevitable it is. We are almost there, guys, with number 9. Under the current legislation, any cleaning product bearing the label "made with organic materials" must be something of at least 70% organic materials. Here are your options: A, carried, B, contained, C, compiled, and D, comprised. And the answer to number 9 is comprised. Under the current legislation, any cleaning product bearing the label "made with organic materials" must be comprised of at least 70% organic materials. In this sentence, we're trying to say that if a product is made up of at least 70% organic materials, then it can bear the "made with organic materials" label. Comprise or be comprised of is a synonym of made up of, contains, and consists of, and therefore perfectly fits into this sentence. Option B is wrong because you can't say must be contained of, but instead you should say must contain. Compile is wrong because it means to assemble, and we're not talking about the act of putting together organic materials. And finally, question number 10. My orchids have been in full something from April to June this year. Is the right answer A, swing, B, bloom, or maybe it's C, sprout, or D, perfection? The answer is unsurprisingly B, bloom. My orchids have been in full bloom from April to June this year. In English, we have the expression "in full bloom," which means that a plant is producing lots of flowers. We also have an expression "in full swing," which means a level of an activity is at its highest. Like a party is in full swing means that everybody is partying, all the guests have arrived, and everyone's having fun. This makes full swing the wrong answer. Now, to bloom means to produce flowers, which is what orchids do. Well, some orchids. Whereas sprout means to produce leaves, which isn't appropriate for this sentence since we don't normally care if a plant like an orchid is producing leaves. We want flowers. And perfection isn't the right answer either, since saying that something is in full perfection doesn't really sound right. And that's it for today's test. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to never miss another English lesson. Let me know in your comments how many points you scored out of 10 and I'll see you in the next one.